Chapter 27. The Gosling. Something was happening inside the goose egg. Tap, 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 crunch. A tiny bill poked through the eggshell, peeped once, and then continued crunching away. The hole grew bigger and bigger, and then, like a robot breaking from a crate, the hatchling pulled himself out into the world. Hey! He laid quietly in his nest, with his eyes closed, surrounded by chips of broken shell. And when his eyes slowly winked open, and the very first time he saw was the robot looking back. Mama! Mama! Peeped the gosling. I am not your mother, said the robot. Mama! Mama! I am not your mother. Food! The gosling was hungry. Of course he was. So, using her friendliest voice, said Rouse, what would you like to eat, little darling? Food! Was her only response. The hatchling was far too young to be helpful. Rouse needed to find a grown goose, so she scooped up the nest with the gosling inside, placed it on her flat shoulder, and marched through the forest, searching for geese. Chapter 28. The Old Goose. Ordinarily, the forest animals would have run away from the monster, but they were awful curious why was she carrying a hatchling on her shoulder. And once Rox explained the situation, the animals actually tried to help. A frog pointed Rox up to the squirrels. A squirrel recommended that she speak with the magpies, and then a magpie sent them over to the beaver pond. The ground grew soggier and the grass grew taller, and soon the robot and the gosling were looking across a wide, murky pond. Dragonflies buzzed through the weeds, turtles sunned themselves on a log, schools of small fish gathered in the shadows, and there, floating in the center of the pond, was an old gray goose. A very good news to you. The robot friend's voice boomed over the water. I have an adorable little gosling with me. The goose just stared. I am in great need of your assistance, said the Ross. Actually, the gosling is in need of your assistance. The goose didn't move. Food! Peeped the gosling. Food! That tiny voice was more than the old goose could bear, and she began gliding across the pond and squawking up to the robot. What are you doing with that hungry hatchet? Where are his parents? There was a terrible accident, said Ross. It was my fault. The gosling is the only survivor. If there was a terrible accident, why does your voice sound so fearful? The ghost flapped her wings. Are you sure you didn't use his parents? I am sure I did not use parents, said Ross, returning to her normal voice. I do not eat anything, including parents. The goose squinted to the robot. Then she said, "Do you know who her parents were?" "I don't know." "Well, they must have belonged to one of the other flocks on this island, because nobody in my flock is missing. Will you take the gosling?" "I must certainly not," squawked the goose. "I can't take in every orphan I choose." "You say this is your fault. It seems to me that it's up to you to make things right." Peeped the gosling. "I've tried to tell him that I'm not his mother," said the robot, "but he does not understand." "Well, you have to act like his mother if you want him to survive." There was the word again. Very slowly, the robot was learning to act friendly. Maybe she could learn to act mothery as well. "You do not want him to survive, don't you? Said the goose. Yes, I want him to survive, said the robot, but I don't know how to act like a mother. Oh, it's nothing. You just have to provide the gosling with food, water, and shelter. Make him feel loved, but don't pamper him too much. Keep him away from danger and make sure he learns to walk and talk and swim and fly and get along with others and look after himself. And that's really all there is to motherhood. The robot just stared. Ah, said the gosling. Now would probably be a good time to feed your son, said the goose. Yes, of course, said the robot. What should I feed him? Give him some mashed up grass. And in a few instants, get in there. All the better. Roz tore several blades of grass from the ground. She mashed them into a ball and then dropped the ball into the nest. The gosling shook his tail feathers and chewed his very first bite of food. By the way, my name is Loudwing, said the goose. Everyone already knows your name, Roz. But what's the gosling name? I don't know, the robot looked at her adopted son. What is your name, Gosling? He can't name himself, squawked Loudwing. And then, with a loud burst of wing beats, the goose fluttered up from the pond and landed right on Roz's head. Water streamed down the robot's dusty body as Loudwing leaned over the nest. Oh dear, he certainly is a tiny thing, said the Loudwing. He must be a runt. I warn you, Roz, runts usually don't last very long, and with you for a mother. It takes a miracle for him to survive. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. However, the gosling still deserves a name. Let's see here. His bill is unusual bright color. It's actually quite lovely. If I were his mother, I'll call him Brightbill. But you're his mother, so it's up to you. His name will be Brightbill, said Roz, as the goose fluttered back to the water. And we will live by this pond, where he can be around other trees. I will find us a sturdy tree nearby. You will do no such thing, the goose flapped her wings. As a tree is no place for a gosling. Brightbill needs to live on the ground like a normal goose. Loudwing sized up the robot. I suppose you two will need a rather large home. You better speak with Mr. Beaver. He can build anything. He's a little gruff at times, but you extra friendly. I'm sure he'll help you out. And if he gives you trouble, remind him that he owes me a favor. Chapter 29. The Beavers. Every day the beavers swam along their dam, expecting and repairing it. The wall of wood and mud allowed only a trickle of water to pass through, and it had turned a narrow stream into the wide pond that many animals now call home. As Roz and Brightbill walked around the pond, they passed hundreds of chewed up tree trunks, proof that the beavers needed a constant supply of wood. And this gave Roz an idea. The robot swung her flattering hands, and the sound of chopping wood echoed across the water. They were soon replaced by the sound of footsteps and shaking leaves as the robot carefully walked along the beaver dam with a gosling on her shoulder and freshly cut tree in her hand. The beavers floated beside their logs and stared at the bizarre sight with open mouths until Mr. Beaver slapped his broad tail on the water, which means stop right there. The robot stopped. Hello, beavers. My name is Roz, and this is Brightbill. Please do not be frightened. I am not dangerous. She held up the tree I gave I have brought you a gift. I thought perhaps you could use this in your beautiful dam. No thanks, said Mr. Beaver. I have strict policy never to accept gifts from Mom. Don't be ridiculous, interrupt Mrs. Beaver. We can't let a perfectly good birch go to waste. I'm afraid I must insist, said Mr. Beaver. Mrs. Beaver turned to her husband. Remember how you asked me to point out when you were being stubborn and rude? Well, you're being stubborn and rude. Then she turned back to Ross. Thank you, monster. If you be so kind as to drop the tree in the water, we'll take it from there. I am not a monster. Ross tossed the tree like a twig. I am not a I am a robot. The tree smacked against the water, sent the beavers bobbling up and down. Just then, Brightbill started peeping. Mama! Hungry, so the rods dropped a ball of grass into the nest. The gosling thinks you're his mother? Came in a quiet voice. It was Peddler, Mr. and Mrs. Beaver's son. His real mother is dead, said Ross, so I have adopted him. There was a brief silence. Then Peddler looked up at Ross and said, You're a very good robot to take care of Brightbill. Mr. Beaver sighed. Yes, that's very good of you, Ross, but I don't understand what any of this has to do with us. My son and I needed home, and Loudwing said you would help us build one. Of course she did, Mr. Beaver muttered to himself. Loudwing gets me out of one lousy jam, and I spent the rest of my days doing her favors. Mrs. Beaver glared at her husband. Sorry, he said, realizing he was being stubborn and rude again. Stay right there, Ross. We need to have a family meeting. And three beavers slipped under the water, and a moment later, their muffling voices could be heard inside the log. The robot stood on the dam and patiently waited with their son. Mama, said, Yes, Brightbill. I'm trying to act like a good mother. A ripple, and Mr. Beaver's head appeared above the water. If you bring us 4 more trees, good, healthy ones, maybe I have time to help you and the gosling. That is wonderful, said the robot. We'll be right back. Chapter 30, The Nest. I'll build my fair share of lodges over the years, Mr. Beaver stood at the water edge, but I can't say I ever built one for a robot and a gosling. So just what exactly do you need? We need a lodge big enough for both of us, said Ross. It should be comfortable and safe, and it should be near the pond. How long do you plan on living in this lodge? I don't know. Then we better make sure it's strong and sturdy. Mr. Beaver stroked his whiskers as he thought. Do you plan on having friends over? The missus love to entertain guests. I do not have any friends. No friends? Well, you seem pretty likable for a robot. But if you want my advice, you should grow yourself a garden. Your neighbors won't be able to resist fresh herbs and berries and flowers. Just you wait and see. So we make sure they're placed for a garden, and we give you lodges some extra space for all the friends you be hosting. The beaver winked. We also need to find a way to keep your lodge comfortable when it's cold outside. Our lodge is heated by our own body, but I think we have to find another way to heat yours. The beaver and the robot thought about heat for a while. The first thing that came to Ra's mind was the sun, but then she remembered the hot sparks she had felt while sliding down the mountain peak. I could heat our lodge with fire, she said. Mr. Beaver blinked his little eyes. I will need to experiment. Ross continued, but I think there is a way. You go right ahead, Ross, said the beaver. But would you try to burn down the entire forest? Do not worry, I will be careful. Let me move on. Mr. Beaver sighed. The next order of business to find a site for your lodge.